Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today I will be a solo host. And, most of the time I share upbeat and positive information, and there will be some of that today. But today I kind of have a broken heart, and I'm going to share that with you as well. Healthy living is real. And it has to do with ups and downs, just like life does. And people know me, they know I generally have a very sunny disposition. Regardless of what the situation is, I typically look on the bright side of life. And but I'm also a realist. And when things don't go well, or when something happens counter to what it could have, I've learned to call it out. I will be soon recording a few episodes focused on the value of the purge. And I've been going through a tremendous purging in my life. And I'll be telling that story, probably going to take 2 or 3 episodes. But this is part of that, as I've got this heartbreak going on and going through my own battles. I realized that hanging on to it will not help me. So I figured I'll put it out there, be done with it, let it go. And whoever hears it, and hopefully they take something good from it. So today I'm going to talk about the Holistic Health Symposium that we just recently put on last week, almost a week ago. Tomorrow will be a week. And I'm going to tell that story. And before we get started, as I'm, going to be telling some things that maybe not everybody wants to hear, I want you all to know that, in my opinion, and I said this weeks and months ago, in fact, the Holistic Health Symposium was a tremendous success simply because of the people that I met and connected and grew closer with. And there were some of the speakers and some people that I've connected on a deep level since we began this. And I never would have met them had it not been for this Holistic Health Symposium. And I also have found a friend that really stood by, did what he said, did more than he said. And I'll be talking about him as we go. And just those things by themselves, if that was the cost of the Holistic Health Symposium, to add that richness to my life, then it was 100% worth it. But we're going to go and we're going to talk about the goals and the what really happened, what didn't happen, who did and didn't do things. I'm not going to get too deep into names, except for one, and I don't even know his last name, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to tell the story of how this came about. So if you know or don't know, I run Willow Creek Springs. We manufacture holistic remedies, natural skincare products, some CBD stuff. We do a lot of different work. I do custom formulation. I've been a formulator for over 40 years and an extractor and all these things. So we've had this business for a while. We moved into a Lake Elsinore facility, a little more than 3 years ago. And my next door neighbor to the business was a company called Myco Alchemy. And Kevin and Jeremiah were the owners, and Kevin's wife, Haleen. And over time, they'd be out there working and I'd be going back and forth and I'd watch what they were doing. And, I'm a curious guy. I came in there and started, just saying, hey, what's up? And at the time they had a third partner, and that turned into a nightmare for them, but we're not going to go too deep into that. Eventually we decided to go fishing. I told him I love to go fishing. He goes out tuna fishing, and we scheduled a fishing trip just about 2 years ago. In fact, it was right around 2 years ago that we went out on this boat. And I think it was a 4-day boat, 3 or 4 days, and we were out there on the water together fishing, and went through some shit out there. Some weird things happened, and I was able to see how he reacted. This is Kevin Ruiz from Michael Alchemy. I'm going to mention his name because I got nothing but good to say about him. Anyways, through that experience, I thought, well, this guy's all right. I would like to spend some more time working with him. Eventually, they came on to the podcast, and there's a couple episodes that they've done about mycology and functional mushrooms and some different topics. And Jeremiah is his partner, and they both were on these 2 podcast episodes earlier in a previous season. And at one point, Kevin reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about?" Well, actually, after we went fishing, I invited his family over to spend an afternoon with us. And we made a dinner, and his kids got to go swimming and just got to hang out. And we got along great. I thought, that's how you get to know somebody, is you spend a little time with them. And we realized that, there's something there. I don't know what it's going to be. He's got his business, I got mine. But at one point he said, I'd like to talk to you about doing an event. And now I've got a dicey history with events. We used to do weddings on our property, which is now the Gardens of Hope, and has been for almost 2 years now. And that was a nightmare in the end. I ended up battling the government. That's a whole series of stories. And then when I was fighting the government over my cannabis advocacy, I needed to raise money for my attorney. And we did 3 or 4, maybe 5 fundraiser events out here. And that was a thing that, it just takes a big toll on you when you're trying to have a garden that is beautiful and sacred and healing, and then people, come over supposedly to support you and help, but they trash the place. And they complain about things, and they walk through bushes, and they leave trash around. And I don't know. I just got a real bad taste in my mouth after, not doing them for a while. And that's not even talking about the spiritual side of things. So I'll get into this in future episode probably, but when you have a lot of strangers come over to your house and you're connected to spirit and you work with spirit a lot, and you have highest ambitions and goals and aspirations and vibrations and all of those things, you realize that when all kinds of strangers come over, they bring what I call hitchhikers. And the haunted mansion at the Disneyland, and the very end when you leave, they show these hitchhikers that are there with you in the little cards. And believe it or not, I believe anyways that people can bring entities, whether, I don't know what you call them. I'm not here to quantify what some of the things that I've experienced are, but supernatural entities that generally don't seem to have our best interest in mind. And I've had to remove, banish, exercise, whatever you want to call it, on just way too many occasions. So having lots of strangers over just is not all that darn appealing. But then he said, why don't we do this? What I want to do is have an event where we take the profit from the event and we use it to donate to the homeless. And I thought, well, that's great. We have a 501c3, Gardens of Hope. I said, that's not particularly our mission, but it would be great to support the community. I've been homeless before in my life early on, and I know how it feels to live minute to minute. So many of us live paycheck to paycheck, week to week, month to month. But when you're out on the street, sometimes you're living hour to hour. You don't know where you have no security, you have no backup, you have no reserves. And if you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it changes the way you're able to make choices, and not in a better way. And I realize that a lot of homeless people are there on their own volition. They'd rather do drugs than participate in society. But there's a lot of people that just slipped down a slope, made a few bad choices and couldn't crawl out, or didn't have the will, or maybe got sick, or maybe have mental illnesses, or there's just so many reasons. I've found myself in difficult spots in my life, and I consider myself to be pretty friggin' capable. And still, once in a while, you're like, holy shit, how did I get here? And how do I get out of it? And I'm in a spot like that right now. I'll be sharing a little bit with that later. And I thought, well, okay, let's talk about it. And so, he's in this whole mushroom community, and, with all the new psychedelic mushrooms, functional mushrooms, edible mushrooms, it's really sort of kind of a rage right now. And I said, well, I use a few mushrooms in a few of my formulas, but I am not a mushroom guy. I don't know these mushroom people. Now, remember, I came from the cannabis world long before it was a thing. So I was an outlaw when everybody was an outlaw, and I came into the legal side of things when it was a medical thing. And I got beat up by the government trying to do things right. And I realized that, this is a scam, and really it's a money game. And when we passed our recreational law, I pulled out. I was like, you guys can have it. I still do my outlaw activities, if you will, but I don't take the risks I used to, and I don't participate the way I did. Well, the mushroom community is kind of moving down that road. It went from, and it happened way quicker than the cannabis world. And it went from, nobody has mushrooms to everybody has mushrooms. And now there's companies, now there's events and all this stuff. There's this whole world. And I says, well, I don't know any of these people. So I said, I like the idea, but rather than have this be a mushroom event, why don't we have it be a health event? Because I'm about health. I like mushrooms. I think they're good medicine. They're good food. They have a lot of potential and healing properties. But frankly, they're not my world, and I don't know that world. So I don't want to be the one person who's talking about something else. I says, let's let it be health centered. So he agreed and decided to call it the Holistic Health Symposium. And I said, all right, well, let's get some organizers together, not too many, but we need some strengths. I go, obviously, I have a venue and I can provide that. I'm going to need to do some things to make it happen, but I can do that. And Kevin agreed to participate with this and help fill in the gaps. I said, well, we're going to need somebody to promote this. And I am terrible at promoting. Anybody who knows me knows I'm good at making things. I'm good at helping. I'm good at getting in the trenches, doing the work. I am lousy at promotion. I'm the worst sales guy you ever did meet, unless you actually want to talk about something real. And then I'll be the best one because I know my shit. And so he found this guy named Bobby. And I don't know what his last name is. I kind of blocked him out, but we're going to talk about that for a little bit. And Bobby had hosted a number of events, and he was supposedly pretty good at this. He knew what he was doing. And so we agreed to come out and meet in the gardens. And again, this is probably, I can't remember. It was probably April, maybe May, early in the year. So this is, we've been working on this thing for a good 5 months, close to 6. And so we all came out, we walked the place, and I showed him, I had a deck that wasn't finished. I had, electrical infrastructure that was damaged from a flood. But we had some beautiful gardens, and we had some great grounds and the ability to, host an event. And So we agreed that this could work. And then as we got started with the planning, I said, well, there's going to be some things like, it costs to have a venue. Like you can't just donate a venue. Otherwise, it's going to be this huge donation on my side. It's a huge effort to put your property out to just say, hey, everybody come to my property and do whatever. It's, people pay thousands and thousands of dollars. I think this guy Bobby had spent $5,000 on the previous venue, and it didn't have hardly any amenities or anything like that. And I said, I tell you what, let's do this. We can either bring in generators, which will cost a bunch of money, and we'll get a bunch of power cords and all the necessary equipment to do that. But generators are generally loud and heavy and a pain in the ass. And in order to have music and speakers, we'll need, power in a couple of different locations. Or, we can get a quote and get an upgrade. And we can I can donate that as, that can be the cost of the venue. That'll be my donation for that. Well, Kevin had a relative that came out, and he looked at everything, and he gave us a quote for $3,900. And I thought that was kind of a lot, but I didn't know what he was planning to do. And I said, well, I just don't have the time or energy to go sourcing out. I had a couple of people that I thought I could get quotes from, and none of it happened. I says, well, this is family. At very least, he's going to probably do a good job. And, we know where he lives. And so I said, I'll tell you what, I'll pay for half of that out of my pocket, and let's take half of it from the vendors that we bring in. And that'll be the cost of the venue. We all agreed. And then we talked about it a little bit more, and we said, well, actually, this was me, Kevin, and Jeremiah. Bobby wasn't around for the conversation, but it was reasonable, and it was still a fraction of, a third of what he had paid for the last venue. And frankly, it was great. And then we said, well, why don't we do this? Let's take the money that the vendors bring in, and let's use that to pay for the event. I mean, there's things you have to do. You have to bring in bathrooms. You have to, we're going to have to do something about the deck. We were going to have to get banners made. We're going to have to get, hopefully get shirts made, I mean, there's expenses in putting this up, promotion and this and that. And I don't know, there's some song that went, that's when things got out of control. And this motherfucker, Bobby, took that concept and got pissed. And he said, you guys are just changing what you said, and you're just going to profit from this. And he clearly didn't understand what it takes to put an event on. He's put an event on, but I guess with other people's money, because, it costs money to do these things. And instead of just saying, hey, man, I don't like this, let's talk about it, let's come up with another way, he basically bounced and said, I'm out. But not only did he do that, he immediately ran to the mushroom community and started shit talking us and said, this Holistic Health Symposium, these motherfuckers are stealing money. They're going to just take the money. They're not doing what they said. They're shisty. They're not good people. And we didn't get a chance to even say anything. And so this negativity started spreading through this community that I'm not even part of. I didn't hear it because I'm not part of it. I frankly didn't give a fuck, but the truth is it affected everything. And if you know anything about positive versus negative energy, you realize that negative energy carries 10 or 20 times the weight of positive energy. And the truth will set you free, but it just depends on the marketing campaign, how that goes. And this guy led a pretty ruthless campaign. Well, I told Kevin and Jeremiah, I said, listen, I'm glad it happened now, because, imagine if we had gotten, several vendors into it. Imagine if we had already reeled in some resources, and then he decided to change his mind. That's when things would really get complicated. So we got off cheap. And I said, let's just take it as a good thing. It'll open the door for some better people to come in. And it did. And some amazing people came in, and through this, Florena and Sal and Roxanne and Gabby and their whole collective I met and have become very close to, and it never would have happened had we not done this event. So I'm very grateful, in spite of what happened, that that we kept going. Well, it's kind of a funny thing, and it's kind of weird, as again, I generally don't have anything negative to say about anybody, but this is a truth, and this guy deserves it. So it's kind of funny because Kevin told me, we all had set up a Gmail account and for the event, and so that way we could receive and we could all. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.